It's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start the week with the ever-reliable Stephen Colbert, a man who was once funny, perhaps decades ago, but has been reduced to a miserable, moaning activist incapable of wit. He's been reduced to this.
Look, Dana, they're trying to portray Border Patrol agents and ICE agents as Gestapo, Nazi, and many other words.
Yes, do not compare ICE or Border Patrol agents to the Nazis. That's an unfair comparison. The Nazis were willing to show their faces.
Yes, Stephen, well done. ICE and Border Patrol agents are worse than Nazis. How clever and comedic of you. And do seek help before the men in white coats arrive and whisk you away. Talking about crazy, let's have a look at these agitators, these brainwashed clowns who think they are heroic freedom fighters defeating the Nazis. Just have a look at this lot, how performative and pathetic this all is.
Deportation! Up with liberation! Down with deportation! From Palestine to Mexico! The border walls have got to go! Down with deportation!
You know, media commentator Megan Murphy nailed it when she said, these people are 100% thick, they're in a movie. But they're just privileged little nerds who have zero relationship with working class or poor people and have no idea how the real world works. Here. Talk about being out of touch. Let's hear from Lady Gaga, who had a lengthy rant at a concert in Tokyo. She read it out. It wasn't very good. Here's a little of what she had to say.
My heart is aching, thinking about the people, the children, the families all over America who are being mercilessly targeted by ICE. I'm thinking about all of their pain and how their lives are being destroyed right in front of us. I'm also thinking about Minnesota and everyone back at home who is living in so much fear and searching for answers on what we all should do.
Just so divorced from reality. And did you notice the lack of cheers and applause? The Japanese have no time for your empty, vacuous and self-indulgent virtue signalling, Lady Gaga. It blows my mind that she would deliver that idiotic rant in Japan, a country that has zero tolerance for illegal immigration, a country with some of the strictest migration laws anywhere in the world. Now, when the celebs are not cheering on lawless, violent agitators in Minneapolis, they are cheering for sacked CNN hack Don Lemon, who was arrested for storming a church during Sunday service. That gets you standing ovation in Hollywood.
Don Lemon.
But I'm sure what you're desperate to know right now is what the most chronically wrong woman in Hollywood thinks of the whole Don Lemon saga. A woman who is proof that wisdom does not come with age. Take it away, Hanoi Jane.
Don Lemon is a professional journalist. He and his producer were doing their job. Nothing more, nothing less. And he's been arrested. And they'll make up all kinds of defamatory things to say about him. That's what they're doing. This is how autocrats act. We can't fall for it. We have to speak up. When a red line is crossed like this, we cannot be silent.
Let's bring in Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, Jane Fonda says this is authoritarian and a breach of the First Amendment.
So I know Don Lemon. My husband created CNN, and I will fight for their right to speak, which is guaranteed in our Constitution. They arrested the wrong Don.
Josh, what's your response to those pearls of wisdom from Jane Fonda?
Yeah, Rita, I literally can't think of a greater endorsement of Pam Bondi and the DOJ issuing an arrest warrant for Don Lemon than Hanoi Jane herself coming out opposed to it. I mean, what an absolutely mesmerizing endorsement for this current prosecution. Look, this notion that journalists in America have a higher First Amendment protection than most Americans is a common misconception. Look, I am a lawyer. I'm also a journalist. My First Amendment rights are the exact same as literally any other American in the country. Journalists have no higher or any different degree of First Amendment protection. The First Amendment does indeed protect your right to stand on a public property, stand on a sidewalk, stand in a public square. You can hold up your dumb Ford Foundation, Tide Foundation, stupid open boroughs, George Soros Fund sign, abolish ICE, DHS is fascist, arrest the orange man, whatever. Who gives a crap? You can do that. Here's what you can't do. You can't trespass private property. And even more than that, we have federal statutes on the books that specifically criminalize doing this when it comes to a house of worship. This is back in the good old days, back when there was bipartisan agreement that, speaking of the First Amendment, Hanoi Jane, you know what else is there? Oh, yeah, the free exercise of religion. And back in the 1990s, back when Democrats were still relatively sane, you had the Bill Clinton-led Democrats lead this bipartisan charge to pass the FACE Act, a 1994 statute that specifically criminalizes doing exactly what Don Lemon and his bunch of not-so-merry left-wing hooligans did in St. Paul, Minnesota a few Sundays ago. You can't disrupt a house of worship there. Frankly, Rita, we've heard how many times in the past few years this refrain from Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and the rest of what I used to call the Democrat lawfare complex. How many times do we hear this refrain that no one is above the law? I agree with that statement. No one is above the law. The question is Don Lemon above the law? Pam Bondi and Donald Trump say no. They're totally correct on that.
Well, Hollywood says he is. He's getting standing ovations from Hollywood these days. Ridiculous stuff. We've got another Democrat media narrative that has come undone, Josh, by facts and footage. And that's this characterisation of Alex Pretty, who was shot dead in a scuffle with federal officers in Minneapolis. We had CNN claim this man was perfect. They use that word, perfect man, what you want your son to grow up to be, who you want your daughter to marry. And every Democrat politician has pushed that narrative, but then footage emerged of his antics at other recent violent protests. Let's have a look at this viral clip of Democrat Elizabeth Warren talking about Pretty with that unearthed footage playing.
Caring for people was at the core of who he was. He was incapable of causing harm. Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm as a steady light within him. Even at the very end, that light was there. I recognized his familiar stillness and signature calm composure.
As is often the case with these manufactured outrages, the truth is kind of lost in the hysteria. But I wonder how many are reassessing the perception of what happened with footage like that.
Yeah, nothing says composure like the video that we just saw, like literally kicking a federal vehicle, of yelling, spitting in the face of officers there. Nothing says composure, Elizabeth Warren. Nothing says composure, Pocahontas, like that video right there. I mean, how many times does the left do this, where they find someone? I mean, I think back to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this MS-13 connected human trafficker, this sex offender, the Maryland man, the quintessential Maryland man there. He's out there in a white T-shirt mowing his lawn there. That's who you should be when you grow up there. You should be the Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You should be Alex Pretty, who's full of composure there. Heck, why don't you go back to the Washington Post from about 7 or 8 years ago? Why don't we try to be an austere religious scholar, kind of like Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS there? I mean, the hits just keep on coming right there. But look, we're being a little tongue-in-cheek here. Look, the reality is a young man died. And he died because, it is very simple, he died because Democrats did not play along. If Tim Walz and Jacob Fry and Ilhan Omar and Keith Ellis and the rest of the Minnesota Democrats had just said, okay, you know what? Federal law is supreme. We understand the Supremacy Clause. We understand the Constitution. Come in here, arrest your criminal lands. If they had done that, Rita, none of this would have happened. The reason that Renee Good and the reason that Alex Pretty are dead is because they ginned up these people into demagogic fits of rage. It's essentially kind of taken the Hamas martyrdom complex and taking it to the American home front. They're trying to use these people as martyrs. It's like death pornography, really. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. And again, a young man lost his life, someone who I didn't agree with politically, obviously, but it's still tragic. He had siblings, parents, et cetera there. And ultimately, really, the blood really, in this case, is on the hands, I think, of Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, and these demagogues who riled up people like Alex Preddy.
And it's funny that this is happening in Minneapolis when ICE is operating throughout the country, and they are deporting a lot more people from places like Texas than Minnesota. And we're not seeing those issues there because law enforcement is cooperating instead of obstructing. And of course, Minneapolis and Minnesota, the entire state of Minnesota has been caught up in an unprecedented fraud scandal. And we're not talking about that anymore, are we, Josh? The focus is entirely on ICE and these protests. Now, we've seen more healthcare professionals fired for posting unhinged rants online, threatening to harm political opponents. Most people would call that domestic terrorism. Among the latest to be sacked is Melinda Cook, a nurse anaesthetist from Virginia, who was fired because she posted videos of herself encouraging medical professionals to drug ICE agents with paralytic meds. And she also advised non-medical staff to do their bit to deliberately injure ICE agents.
Get on Tinder, get on Hinge, find these guys. They're around. They're an ICE agent, bring some X-Lax and put it in their drinks. Get them sick.
Get them sick, Josh. That's what she said. There appears to be a disproportionate number of sick, dangerously ideological people in the medical profession. And that's scary. These videos of nurses or others in the medical profession posting just really ugly, threatening stuff online are becoming all too common.
Yeah, someone apparently didn't read about the Hippocratic Oath when she went to nursing school, I suppose, right? I mean, the first rule, of course, medicine is famously to do no harm. I guess unless you're a leftist. I guess if you're a leftist, then the first rule sometimes actually is do harm. If you're a leftist, maybe the very first rule actually is to cheer on the assassination of my late friend Charlie Kirk. If you're a leftist, maybe your first rule is to cheer on the near assassination of Donald J. Trump. If you're a leftist, maybe your first instinct is to start naming your babies Luigi after Luigi Mangione, this anarchist who shot dead a father and a husband in cold blood, a point-blank range, simply for being the CEO of a healthcare company there. And now astoundingly, Luigi Mangione is actually going to avoid the death penalty. To me, it's utterly astounding there. I mean, there's something deeply sick. There's something deeply sick in the American leftist mentality. And I think that the media bears a shockingly high part of the blame for this, because they have spent years and years and years communicating this message that their political opposition is not someone to be amicably debated with, but is an existential threat. How many times have we heard this? A threat to democracy, a threat to the rule of law, a threat to the Constitution. They're a threat to all of us there. Take matters into your own hands and do whatever is necessary to make this right there. That's how you end up with videos like this. That's how you end up with all these outrageous elementary school teachers who are having their children read celebrations of Charlie Kirk's murder. It's sick, sick stuff, Rita. And I asked the same question that I've been asking for a long time about the rise of political violence, which is, where are the leaders on the Democrat side of the aisle, these senior statesmen who can look at videos like this and say, enough, this is way too far there? I haven't seen that yet. And I haven't seen that because probably there's no one capable of giving that speech at this time, which says all you need to know about the state of that party.
Well, when you're characterising ICE agents as modern-day fascists and Nazis and whipping up that sort of fear and hysteria, you're not going to speak out against this, are you? You're creating more of this. Yeah. Now, let's talk about the Epstein files. A lot of new revelations in the latest Epstein document dump, including this: the convicted pedophile once asked Ken Starr to help discredited TDS-afflicted author Michael Wolff to dig up dirt on President Trump. Josh, we learned from previous document releases that back in 2015, Wolff encouraged Jeffrey Epstein to blackmail the then presidential candidate Donald Trump. The relationship here is fascinating, and Michael Wolff has also said that Jeffrey Epstein believed it was Donald Trump who first alerted law enforcement about what was happening under his roof, and he hated him for that ever since.
You know, Donald Trump famously kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. He literally kicked him out of being a member at the private Mar-a-Lago club after these revelations first came to light. So, I mean, Jeffrey Epstein, Rita, my reading of the case for a long time has been that Jeffrey Epstein held a grudge against Donald Trump for a very, very long time. I mean, there were those messages that came out where Jeffrey Epstein was texting the non-voting rep for the U.S. Virgin Islands during this Michael Cohen hearing. He was obsessed with trying to make Michael Cohen look good, to bring down Donald Trump there. He was obsessed with bringing down Trump. He hated Donald Trump. And he hated Donald Trump because on a level, it was very personal for him. Jeffrey Epstein, through reasons that are still somewhat unclear to this day, had amassed this astounding Rolodex and was hobnobbing with the rich and the famous and the this and that. And I mean, you name it, he probably knew them there. And there were very few people who, in the later years of his life, had no tolerance whatsoever, and Donald Trump was one of those individuals there. So, you know, this whole effort that we're seeing from the left, Ro Khanna of California, various other Democrats who are trying so hard to try to get Trump via the Epstein files, it's not going to work. I mean, you're much likely going to be hoisted on your own petard when it comes to Bill Clinton, who was famously a heck of a lot closer to Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump was himself.
Well, he did have that infamous painting of Bill Clinton hanging at his main property in New York. I mean, that in itself, my gosh, I think there's a lot more for us to learn about that. And among some of the more notable news items to come from this latest document dump is the claim that the billionaire and philanthropist Bill Gates caught sexually transmitted diseases from Russian girls and then tried to secretly give his wife antibiotics to cover that up. Jeffrey Epstein claimed in July 2013 that the Microsoft co-founder asked one of his advisors to provide him with medicine to treat STDs. The allegations have been rejected as completely false by Gates' spokesperson, Josh. But I do recall Melinda Gates saying that the relationship Bill Gates had with Jeffrey Epstein was a key factor in the divorce.
Yeah, look, I mean, between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, flip a coin. I mean, who's like the less reputable of the two? I mean, who could you possibly believe here, right? I mean, I honestly have no idea if this is true or not there. You know, Bill Gates, by the way, he's done something of an under the radar, a bit of a reversal on his signature issue on climate change. This was really kind of slipped under the radar, Rita. I'm not sure how many people caught this there. He issued a very interesting blog post on his blog in late October saying, you know what? I was actually wrong about climate change. It's actually not going to end the whole world. Turns out that a lot of us are kind of overstating the damage there. So he's trying to do a bit of a mea culpa on this there. I mean, maybe there's going to be another mea culpa coming when it comes to his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein there. Look, I have no idea if Epstein was personally responsible for this divorce between Melinda Gates and Bill Gates, but you know what? It sounds like it kind of fits, honestly. I mean, they got divorced there. As you correctly note, Melinda said that Bill Gates was involved in all sorts of questionable, sketchy behavior there. And who's the king of sketchy behavior? Oh, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein there, a guy who was very much in Bill Gates' Rolodex. So it's kind of like, if the shoe fits, maybe there's something there. But as I said, these are two absolute dirtbags. So, I mean, take your pick as to who to believe, I guess.
But I do repeat that Bill Gates, through a spokesperson, has said all these allegations are completely false. Josh Hammer, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for your time tonight. Welcome back. Let's have a look at some of the feral hate and bile coming Nicki Minaj's way for standing up for Christians and for pledging her support to President Trump. Here's an example of that hate and bile, courtesy of actor and singer Billy Porter.
Nicki Minaj has been trending, over
her. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. And all of them.
Joining me now is celebrity and royal commentator and host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Kinsey, that was quite the meltdown from Billy Porter.
It really was. Should we send somebody to check on him? I mean, what we're seeing here is intolerance masquerading as moral outrage. Nicki Minaj expressing her faith and her political support I think, instead of debating it, she's met with public shaming and theatrical rage. The irony is the same people preaching inclusion, like Billy Porter, seem completely incapable of tolerating dissent, especially from a powerful woman who will not fall in line.
Well said. Now, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to testify before Congress following the release of even more Epstein files, including disturbing photos which appear to show the man formerly known as Prince Andrew on all fours over the top of a female lying down on the floor. Kinsey, what more can you tell me about this latest Epstein document dump?
How humiliating. And we're still going through these documents. There's still more to be discovered. But I think that these latest messages and pictures only deepen the questions around Andrew's judgment and associations. The material reinforces a longstanding concern that the royal family has never fully confronted the seriousness of Andrew's proximity to Epstein. I think calls for his testimony are about accountability, and the pressure's growing because silence is no longer acceptable. But truly, how credible is Andrew? Not very.
No, I still remember that interview, that infamous interview where he spoke about how he doesn't sweat, and that was proof of his innocence. I mean, that was such an ill-advised move for him. If he's going to testify before Congress, let's hope he's a little better rehearsed than he was for that interview. Now, in another email, Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, told Jeffrey Epstein that she was waiting for her youngest daughter to come back from a shagging weekend. This is in a 2010 email after the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein asked her if she was coming to New York.
Yeah, I mean, that email is shocking because of how casual it is. It's vulgar and good Lord. I mean, how humiliating for her daughter today. But it also reflects an environment where Epstein was normalized within royal circles long after his criminal behavior was widely known. How often do we talk about how you are who you associate with? Whether or not laws were broken, the moral failure and lack of boundaries is undeniable and deeply uncomfortable for the monarchy.
Now, Melania Trump's documentary brought in a whopping $7 million US at the box office during its opening weekend, making it the highest grossing debut for a non-fiction film in the past decade. And of course, the left-wing media are not impressed. The Hollywood Reporter called the documentary a propaganda doco. The Atlantic labelled it a disgrace, and The Guardian said it was pure, endless hell. Oh, Kinsey, they must be miserable. It's doing so well at the box office.
Are you allergic to haute couture? Like, how can you call it miserable? I mean, I could just look at her in outfits all day long. But I mean, they are furious, but the audience has spoken. The media can sneer all they want, but 7 million does not come from ideology. It comes from genuine interest. Viewers are curious about Melania Trump as a person, not the caricature they've been sold. And that loss of narrative control is what really upsets the critics, I think.
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't pass judgment, but there is certainly a great deal of fascination with Melania. She does seem like a woman of mystery, despite the fact she's been in the public eye so long. What have you made of the film? Have you watched the full thing or seen clips?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I did think that I don't think I know her. I certainly did not walk away feeling like I know who she truly was, but I definitely thought that she was a much softer character than she's been painted out to be in the press. A great mother, somebody that is, I want to say wears the pants in the family, but I feel like that's a disservice to the president. But she is definitely the boss when she wants to be. She's a brilliant woman, has a great head on her shoulders, and is just gorgeous. I mean, I think she's incredibly beautiful.
And Kinsey, Melania has not featured on the cover of Vogue, unlike every other First Lady in recent years or other fashion magazines, despite being uniquely stunning. Now let's talk about Joe Rogan. He's revealed that he refused to pay the Golden Globes a $500 submission fee in order to be nominated in their podcast category. Here he explains why he decided not to go through with it.
A lot of people say, why wasn't Joe Rogan nominated for the Golden Globes? And like, why did Amy Poehler win? I didn't submit. You had to pay $500. And the $500 is like for paperwork or whatever. I said, no. I go, I don't care. I already won. Like, you can't tell me I didn't win. I've been number one for 6 years in a row. All of a sudden, you're going to have a contest in front of all these people wearing tuxedos, and you're going to say, now I'm not number one?
Smart move by him, but getting recognised by those people should not be a goal of someone like a Joe Rogan or anyone who wants to be taken seriously. It's normally a sign that you're on the wrong track if those people are giving you awards, Kinsey.
Exactly. And it's so right when he was like, you're not going to tell me I'm not number one. You know, analytically, statistically, you can look at that guy's number on the charts for how many years now. He's like, Amy Poehler doesn't take that away from me because a group of her friends decide to hand her this trophy. And he understands something legacy institutions refuse to admit. Cultural relevance cannot be bought with submission fees. When award bodies start charging creators to validate them, it exposes how out of touch they are.
Now, Ellen DeGeneres has been caught shopping for a new mansion the same day she joined calls for a nationwide no work, no school, no shopping protest against ICE. Kinsey, as I've often said, if the left didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all.
I just know that you were shocked. You were floored when you saw this story. I mean, this is textbook celebrity hypocrisy, calling for economic shutdowns while shopping for luxury real estate on the same day tells you everything. These protests are symbolic gestures that cost activists nothing. It costs them nothing to post something on their Instagram, while working families are expected to shoulder the consequences.
Now, it's been revealed that Tom Cruise deserted his £35 million Knightsbridge flat in London just days after an armed moped gang raided a nearby Rolex store because, according to insiders, Tom Cruise feels London has declined and is no longer safe. Kinsey, I know plenty of Brits who feel exactly the same way.
So do I. Thank you, Sadiq Khan. Londoners have been raising alarms about crime for years, and they are often dismissed as alarmists. But when someone as security conscious as Tom Cruise quietly exits, it reinforces what locals already know. Public safety concerns are no longer theatrical. They are lived experiences. I have friends that can't wear watches anymore. You have to wear a leash on your cell phone. It's unacceptable.
It is crazy that in a first world city, you can't just look at your phone and walk down the street because someone in a moped is going to go past and grab it out of your hand. And the cops will not help you, Kinsey, because this sort of crime is just so commonplace that they just tell you to go fill out a form and claim it on your insurance. They have given up almost.
But they will show up at your house if they don't like a tweet. They will show up at your house if they don't like what you posted on social media.
That's where the resources are. Absolutely. Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for your time tonight.